Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from the Federalist. Let's scroll down and see when it is dated, July 29th. And all the news and all the rage these days is the Russia collusion hoax. Of course, if you're paying attention to left-wing media, you probably know nothing about this because they're not reporting on it at all. But if you're listening on the right, you have heard of this for sure. It says the Russia collusion hoax is worse than you think. And here is the man who spearheaded the entire thing. And is that any surprise to anybody? The answer to that would be no. And it says, new revelations suggest a conspiracy at the heart of the Obama White House to target Trump as a Russian agent. So, as everybody in right-wing media was saying the whole time that this was all BS, it turns out that was exactly what it is. So it says, it's beginning to look like the Obama administration was all in on the Russia collusion hoax long before Trump won the 2016 election. On Monday, Fox News reported that before the FBI ever launched its politicized probe of the Trump campaign's possible ties to Russia in the summer of 2016, U.S. intelligence agencies had credible foreign sources indicating the FBI would help spread the Russia collusion hoax, which of course is exactly what happened. It says it's the latest twist in a string of shocking new revelations about how the U.S. intelligence community, at the behest of then-President Barack Obama, manufactured and disseminated a false narrative that Moscow was working to get Trump elected in 2016. The credible foreign sources that predicted the FBI would run an intelligence operation against Trump in the summer of 2016 were almost certainly Russian sources. This is back in September of 2020. The author's colleagues Sean Davis and Molly Hemingway, who are the two people in charge of this website, I should mention, reported that then Director of National Intelligence, now CIA Director, John Ratcliffe, told congressional officials that top U.S. intelligence officials knew that Moscow was aware of Hillary Clinton's campaign plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian asset. Excuse me. I will also not be cutting that out. It says former CIA Director John Brennan, said Ratcliffe, personally briefed then-President Obama and top U.S. national security officials that Moscow had determined Clinton had approved a plan in late July 2016 to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services, according to Brennan's own handwritten notes. In September of that year, former FBI Director James Comey was sent an investigative referral regarding Moscow's alleged knowledge of Clinton's plans to paint Trump as a treasonous Russian asset. But instead of investigating whether the Clinton campaign had been infiltrated by Russian intelligence, Comey went about obtaining federal warrants to spy on Trump's campaign. I don't think they were infiltrated by Russian intelligence. They just wanted to blame Trump for something. They just wanted to put something on Trump to, make sure his presidency was bad, so to speak. Says what's more, we know that Christopher Steele, whose infamous dossier wound up being a key source for the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment, or ICA, that falsely claimed Russian President Vladimir Putin aspired for Trump to win the election. And if you didn't know already from some of the stuff that you've seen, it was actually Hillary he was cheering for. Says he was at the time on the payroll of the sanctioned Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, and says that was falsely claimed. By the way, says in his primary subsource for the dossier, Igor Danchenko, was long suspected of being a Russian intelligence asset, and I think that was actually proven. Says all of which helps shed light on what was reported Monday. Ratcliffe, according to Fox News, is going to declassify the underlying intelligence that reveals that credible foreign sources knew about the FBI's plans to promote the Trump-Russia narrative. Part of that intelligence is a classified annex in former special counsel John Durham's investigation into the origins of the FBI's Trump-Russia probe. And I think at this point, because this is at the time I'm recording this a few days later, that annex is out. And I read something, I can't really remember. It's stuff that's like above my brain power to figure out, but we'll figure it out eventually. But it didn't look very good for the people that have been mentioned in this article that are on the left, so to speak. So it says Fox News quoted an anonymous source familiar with the contents of the annex, who said that the intelligence collected from these foreign sources predicted the FBI's next move in the summer of 2016 with alarming specificity. Ultimately, the release of the classified annex will lend more credibility to the assertion that there was a coordinated plan inside the U.S. government to help the Clinton campaign stir up controversy connecting Trump to Russia, the source told Fox News. And can't you hear Rachel Maddow right now just going on TV being like, Russia, 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 and it turns out it was liar, liar, liar. Because I feel like she knew, but that's just me being a conspiracy theorist for a second. Says, together with what we now know about Obama's involvement in all of this, and again, he was the tip of the spear, says especially after Trump had won the election, it looks very much like what Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard called it last week, a treasonous conspiracy and a years-long coup against a duly elected president. So are we going to start seeing some arrests? Probably not, but be nice, kind of show people that there's can't get away with this. As in particular, as the author's colleague Margot Cleveland reported in these pages yesterday, and that link is in orange there, says the extent of Obama's personal involvement is deeper than previously reported. Last week's release of the House Permanent Selection Committee on Intelligence, and that's why does everything need to be abbreviated? The HPSCI, let's just, hopefully, it's going to be used a bunch of times. All right, fine. So it's the House Permanent Selection Committee on Intelligence's report summarizing its investigation into the drafting of the ICA exposed how then CIA Director Brennan ordered the publication of 3 substandard intelligence reports. These reports, together with the Steele dossier, became foundational sources for the ICA judgments that Putin preferred Trump and Clinton. It's Trump and Clinton. Trump over Clinton is what it says. But as Cleveland notes, the recently declassified HPSCI report also reveals Obama's central role in this scheme. Investigators and the ICA authors were denied access to a trove of information on grounds of executive or congressional privilege, according to the HPSCI report. One FBI analyst, the report says, argued that this intelligence should be shared with those responsible for drafting the ICA, but the Obama administration denied ICA drafters access to this intelligence on grounds of executive or congressional privilege. Setting aside what intelligence might have been protected by congressional privilege, executive privilege rests with the president, which means Obama is the one who barred the ICA drafters from seeing the underlying intelligence. Uh-oh, that's not good. So it says, why would he do that? It says to prevent them from saying that it was laughably unreliable. Indeed, that much of it relied on the outlandish Steele dossier. Indeed, the compartmented version of the ICA, that is, the version only accessible to specially identified and approved individuals, included the Steele dossier, but the public and even classified versions did not. Why would the Steele dossier be compartmented? Man, I'm having trouble with that word. It says, as Cleveland explained, to keep the honest analysts responsible for finalizing the classified and unclassified version of the ICA from discovering the shady and fake intel Brennan buried in the compartmented version. Yeah, I got it right that time. It says, a big part of what we're learning now is the links some of these intelligence officials went to hide what they had done. That's why much of this didn't come out during Trump's first term. Some of the people who were involved in it continued to serve in the Trump administration and worked to cover their tracks. And I think that's still kind of going on right now. So it says, for example, Gina Haspel, who served as CIA director under Trump, personally blocked the declassification of Russiagate documents in 2020. Why would she do that? Well, Haspel was handpicked by Brennan to serve as CIA station chief in London from 2014 to early 2017, the same time that Steele, a British national, was in London compiling his garbage dossier on Trump. Haspel was the CIA's link between London and Washington during this period. Over the weekend, Government Accountability Institute President Peter Schweizer suggested Haspel should be investigated for her potential role in the Russia collusion hoax. Yes, everybody should be. Says, what role did she play not only in perhaps creating this, but what role did she play in suppressing it when she was CIA director and she was supposed to be serving Donald Trump rather than CIA establishment? Apparently, I forgot how to read during that sentence, and I'm sorry for that. But says Schweizer says she certainly had access to this material. Says at this point, that's really the question that should determine who gets investigated. Who had access to this material? We know that Obama and his intel chiefs had access to material in the summer of 2016 that suggested Moscow knew that Clinton was going to try to smear Trump as a Russian asset, and that Moscow believed the FBI would go along with that. We know that they did indeed go along with it, and that they cooked up the ICA after Trump won, hiding their reliance on the Steele dossier and other unreliable and outlandish intelligence products. We know all this now, 8 years after the treasonous conspiracy was launched, and soon we'll know more as Ratcliffe and Gabbard release more. The question is, will anyone in the Trump administration do anything about it? And that's where I become very pessimistic. I think that's probably a gigantic no. And I can see why, because Trump, people are already framing him as an authoritarian, which he is absolutely not, and a fascist, which, again, he is less a fascist than an authoritarian, but neither of those. And people are trying to frame him as that, and if he tries to go after these folks, they're going to be like, see, he is trying to take over the country. You're going to see that right away. But at the same time, it's like, there needs to be accountability for people, or what's the point? They're just going to do it again. So yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.